Hi, I'm Kylie. Welcome to Just Another Army Vet 2.0, a channel dedicated to India. Today, I'm reacting to another BeerBiceps podcast. This is Major Gaurav Arya, The Truth About India versus Pakistan and China, The Ranveer Show, episode 137. This is not a long episode, however, I am going to break it up into two parts, and once I publish part 2, I will link it at the very end of this video. I just want to remind everyone that I am not a geopolitical expert. I am just an average American citizen who happens to be a veteran. So I'm hoping you learn something from this, and maybe you will too. Let's get to it.
Absolutely honored to bring everyone this episode of The Ranveer Show with Major Gaurav Arya. Geopolitics, the politics of the world, the politics on an international stage, country versus country dynamics. This has become one of the themes of The Ranveer Show lately. Major Gaurav Arya has been one of the most requested guests on the show. Absolutely honored to bring this veteran of the Indian Army on TRS. Enjoy this heavy, enriching episode with Major Gaurav Arya. Major Gaurav Arya, sir, thank you for being on the Ranveer Show. You're one of the most requested episodes. It's an honor having you on the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's dive straight into it, sir. We're talking a lot about geopolitics nowadays on the Indian internet. And I think, at least from what I can tell on your Twitter, that's one of the goals, to educate the Aam Janta about geopolitics. So I'd love to hear about geopolitics from you, sir. Like, for someone who doesn't know anything about geopolitics, where would you begin that explanation?
I would begin by, telling people that we have had a history of invasions in India, and we have a history of fighting back. And the way our immediate geopolitical surroundings, geostrategic surroundings are changing, I think it's time for India to be more aggressive, take the front foot, and actually start not reacting, but preempting things in our immediate neighborhood. Afghanistan is burning. What are we doing in Afghanistan? Pakistan is getting unsettled very fast. China is taking interest. Iran is taking interest. Turkey is involved. The United States of America has repositioned itself. What is going on, and how will it in the short term and long term impact India is, in a nutshell, is what I would like to sort of talk about, and that is my focus generally nowadays.
What is the scenario for the near future, sir? Like, with the COVID pandemic happening all over the world, what are we looking at, say, in the next 10 to 20 years, like, according to you?
I think I have very strong reasons to believe that, this entire COVID thing is, it's a bioweapon, which is what even the US President Joe Biden, he did not say it in so many words. But he did say that this needs to be investigated, and the investigation results will be out shortly.
So currently the narrative says that, like other SARS viruses outbreaks from live meat markets, that's probably how the COVID-19 virus also happened. However, the jury is still out. A lot of people are not convinced, and they do think that it was a virus leaked from that lab in China, or that maybe it was just a bioweapon, as he just said. So for me, I'm not convinced that it is a bioweapon. I think it has a likelier chance of it just being an outbreak from a live meat market. And I do think that this does warrant more investigation. How about you guys? What do you think?
What actually you asked specifically about COVID, so let me tell you that, what worries me is that this virus is geographically sensitive. It's like almost, and I don't want to make light of it because millions of people have died, but it's like it's got a GPS attached to it. So in Indian Punjab, let us say we talk about Atari, which is our side of the border in Indian Punjab, there is a problem. But in Vaga, which is 200 meters ahead of Atari, 300 meters ahead, similar problems don't exist. While there is COVID in Pakistan, there is no doubting it. So in West Bengal, there is a certain strain of COVID, and this COVID is not to be found in Bangladesh. If you look at Uttar Pradesh, you have a strain of COVID, which is in Gorakhpur. But few kilometers ahead is Nepal, and you don't have the same strain of COVID in Nepal. I do not know. I'm not a virologist. I'm not a trained scientist, but these things set me thinking. So 20, 30 years the line, I don't know what is going to happen, but down the line, I think we are going to have more mutations, and this is going to be used further, not just COVID. I'm saying not just coronavirus, any other virus, because it leaves very little telltale signs. There is no destruction of property. It is targeted and it is stable. This is the perfect weapon, yeah. I think China and other world powers are going to work more and more on this.
Yeah, we had the historian and astrophysicist Abhijit Chabra on the show, and I had a detailed discussion with him about the same topic, and he echoed the same thoughts. He had his own version of it. He's a scientist, so he kind of broke it down even from that perspective. And I think you mentioned that you're not a biologist or virologist, but he spoke a little bit from that perspective, and he agrees completely. And I think that's the narrative that's kind of making it to mainstream media nowadays. People are realizing what's happening in the world, so. But since you mentioned this word called weapon, it's a bioweapon. I remember hearing the word bioweapon for the first time when I used to watch reports of the Iraq war when I was a kid. When the US had invaded Saddam Hussein's Iraq, and bioweapons were just spoken of as this possible concept that time. But I think we're living through it, sir. If you could elaborate a little bit more on the concept of bioweapons. Just from whatever context you wish to reveal to the public, we'd really appreciate that. So, what's out there? How harmful can it be?
So when B is talking about weapons of mass destruction, which is anything nuclear, biological, or chemical, NBC, that's what we call it in the U.S. military at least. But in the Iraq War, I remember seeing the news, they were always looking for weapons of mass destruction. And did they ever find any? No, and I think that was because they just never existed.
So it's called gain of function. Gain of function is, think of it as a virus on steroids. What you do is you take a virus, you isolate it, and then using technology, you make it more dangerous. So the symptoms on the human being who is infected with this virus are more severe. And the virus mutates frequently. So remember the first wave of coronavirus, everybody was scared, but there was no requirement of oxygen as such. It was normal. In the second wave, suddenly this whole oxygen thing started coming up that, the country is really short of oxygen and people are dying because there is no oxygen, etc., etc. We've all gone through that. What is the mutation going to take in the third wave? So this mutates frequently, right? It is isolated, and this gain of function there's one doctor called Dr. Andrew Fauci in the United States of America who actually funded the gain of function research in these Wuhan labs in China. And this is how you see bioweapons is not a new thing. It's very old. It's almost a century old. So in the army, we call it the NBC, nuclear, biological, and chemical.
So bioweapons are not a century old. They're closer to a millennial old. The Mongols actually used some plague-infected bodies back in the 1300s, I think, against their enemies. And not to mention the Germans who used biological and chemical warfare during World War I.
Three kinds of weapons of mass destruction. Nuclear we're aware of. Chemical weapons are also there, and biological weapons. So in biological weapons, basically, viruses and bacteria are used. Gain of function is applied. They are made more dangerous. And then through water, through the air, through various kind of contagion or various kind of you touch and it spreads, etc. That is how these viruses and these biological weapons are spread all over. Economies are shattered, people die, and this is another way of making a country weak. Now, except for China, everybody's economy has taken a hit. China's economy has grown in the coronavirus times.
Ooh.
So yes, this is a bioweapon, and this in a nutshell is what I'd like to say.
Interesting.
So is the purpose of economic growth, only to fuel war? What is going to happen after this? Say we actually battle the whole pandemic and the world kind of moves out of this pandemic situation. What next once China has those economic advantages, according to you?
See, we seem to think of war as bad. And it's natural for human beings to think of war as bad. It is undesirable. And you could look at it from the prism of good and bad.
So, for example, World War II, one of the worst wars in human history, over 70 million people died, was actually a lifesaver for the American economy. It helped bring the US out of its Great Depression.
The point is that war is inevitable. War always happens. In 5,000 years of recorded human history, I'm not saying human history, I'm saying recorded human history, we've hardly had 200 years of peace. Continuous peace. It is in man's nature to fight. It is in man's nature to wage war. It is in man's nature to kill. No, we are at the top of the food chain. We kill animals for food. We rule the world. How did we get there? We didn't get there by being nice.
Exactly.
Human beings rule the roost today. They're at the top of the food chain because we killed everybody else. You see, so anybody who says that war is bad, I think is just being sanctimonious. This is natural. We are not saying good and bad. So we are not going there and saying that. Of course, it's avoidable. Absolutely, people die, and nobody wants that to happen. But the fact of the matter is, this is human history. Yeah? We have been killing each other with bare hands. We've been killing each other with stones, and nothing has developed faster in this world than weaponization of normal objects. People used to use, flint and rock and stone to light fires. Then somebody took a piece of flint and tied it to a piece of wood, and it became a spear, and they started using it for hunting. So weaponization of solar energy, weaponization of space, weaponization of everything. You see, today people have weaponized social media. They weaponize Twitter. These things keep on happening time and again, and this is our true nature. We must understand this is our true nature. I'm not again giving a certificate saying this is good or bad. This is our true nature, and one thing I'm saying that this will continue. War will keep on getting more sophisticated, and there will always be people with fat checkbooks who are willing to buy the latest and more sophisticated and efficient weapons that kill. So while we may say that, war is bad, and of course it is bad, but war is not going anywhere.
Yeah. So considering what the Chinese Communist Party is doing, do you think the purpose of war for them is just geographical expansion? Like, are they trying to expand the country? I mean, I know they kind of already are with the whole Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh angle. So for one, could you expand on that Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh angle? And two, could you expand on what you believe is the reason China is even kind of moving towards the possibility of warfare?
Taiwan.
See, this is called war by other means. So there is a very famous saying that all war is deceit. Even in our Shastras, and they mention deception as a way of war.
Asashas. What is that exactly?
Kautilya's Arthashastra mentions 4 ways of getting a thing done. 4 ways by which an objective can be achieved, a nation's objective can be achieved. One is Sam. Sam is by way of convincing a person. This is what diplomats do. Dam. It is by way of economic benefit. For example, India sends vaccines free of cost to various countries. India helps in the reconstruction of Afghanistan. This is Dam. There is Dand. Dand is by way of military force, which is what the Indian armed forces do, which they do to China and Pakistan. And then there is Bhed. Bhed is by way of deception. That is what the intelligence agencies do. So this is a time-honored, a function of the government, how to achieve its aims outside and within its own territory. Number 2, you asked about China. You see, China has never put its military outside. The last big adventure it tried was in Vietnam, and it got hammered in 1979 in Vietnam.
Vietnam.
China, its economy really went forward. China is the second largest economy in the world today after the United States of America. And China uses its checkbook. You mentioned Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. China does not have boots on the ground in either of these 3 countries. Yeah. But what China does is, it typically selects the victims of the Chinese checkbook are typically small countries, countries which have been unstable politically, countries which have a corrupt elite or corrupt leadership, like in the case of Pakistan or Sri Lanka, and countries which, there are people vying for positions of power even violently. China typically moves into this space. And China occupies this space. For example, You must have heard of the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is looking for investment so that it can improve its infrastructure. Now, China says, okay, we'll build this port. China builds the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. It builds the Gwadar port in Balochistan and Pakistan, right? Knowing fully well that Sri Lanka can never pay back the money invested, knowing fully well from day one that the return on investment on these ports is sunk. On the day the project started, the Chinese knew. So what you do is, you bribe a couple of senior people, you bribe them, they sign the contract on impossible terms. Whether in Hambantota port or in Gwadar, today Hambantota port, for all practical purposes, is Chinese territory. It is on a 99-year lease to China. This is exactly the same thing that is being done to Pakistan. I don't know if you're aware, but the Islamabad airport, the Karachi airport, the Lahore airport, the Multan airport has been mortgaged. There is a park in F9 in Islamabad. That entire park has been mortgaged. Pakistan International Airlines, the entire airline along with its aircraft, assets, helicopters, everything has been mortgaged. The Lahore-Faisalabad motorway, the Islamabad-Lahore motorway, 4 or 5 motorways have been mortgaged. The entire country, like you say in Hindi, pura mulk girvi hai.
A lot of this does sound a little familiar. It's reminiscent of that Think School video I react to about how India is trapping China with its military strategy. But yeah, I wonder if he's going to bring up the string of pearls theory.
This is what I'm trying to say. So basically, this is economic warfare. This is dam. What China does is dam and bhed. So even the diplomats are called wolf warriors. There is an aggressive kind of diplomacy. Africa, you have a lot of unstable regimes in Africa. What does China do? It moves in. It talks to the corrupt elite. And you know what the key is? I sort of tried and figured it out. Let's say Pakistan takes a loan. Who sanctions the loan? Pakistan needs $5 billion. The sanctioning authority is the Prime Minister and the Parliament. The terms are hidden from the common people. The terms are hidden from the rest of the world because that is what the deal says, that you cannot reveal China-Pakistan Economic Corridor's terms and conditions. These are top secret, these are state secrets. So who decides that Pakistan has to take a loan? It is one individual. Who pays back? The entire nation pays back. How does it pay back? Rising fuel prices, rising gas prices, rising taxes. Today, because of this quote-unquote loan diplomacy, the State Bank of Pakistan, it's almost owned by the IMF. Which is a Western body, which is not a Chinese body.
I think he's talking about the International Monetary Fund. I don't know a whole lot about what they do, but I think that's what he's talking about.
But there are various parts of Pakistan that are owned by various other countries. Yeah, China owns their airports, China owns their motorways. Most of the real estate in Pakistan, the strategic real estate in Pakistan, is actually owned by China as we speak today. So this is war by other means. This is war by the checkbook. This is war by deception. This is war by corrupting the elite leadership of a country, small country, typically politically unsettled, taking advantage. China will never do that with India. China can never do that with India. It's impossible because our systems are transparent for most of the time. We have a strong political elite and India is a 130 crore people country. But smaller countries, Congo, yes. Tanzania, absolutely. Nigeria, let's do it. Pakistan, absolutely yes. Bangladesh, maybe with a little bit of a problem. Nepal, sure. Sri Lanka, absolutely. So this is how they function. Without boots on ground, without soldiers, just the checkbook.
So far, I'm really enjoying this podcast. I think he is very well educated and well informed, and I think he brings a lot of his experience to the table, which is a good thing. I'm glad that he can answer these questions in a very concise manner and not go off on these random tangents. I do find his point that China is using its checkbook as a weapon very intriguing, and I can't wait to see what he has to say about that in part 2. Once I film part 2, I'll put it right here. Until next time, if you want to help support the channel, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the thanks button, or just check out some of these videos. Thanks for watching.